Hey, we're hanging out with Jaxon Jones. He's the quarterback and middle linebacker for the Central Rebels. He's here at the barn. You know, we were just looking around this place just before we started the interview. What's I mean, you haven't taken it all in, but what's your favorite piece of memorabilia in here?
I would say the Champs St. Louis Post-Dispatch out here.
Yeah.
Yadier Molina was like my favorite player growing up. So
Catcher?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hardcore baseball guy, football guy too. Mm-hmm. So good deal. I like a lot of the stuff in here. We don't want to always get a 360, but there's a lot of cool stuff in here. Yeah. We're talking on the Parkland Podcast now here on the pregame show. Central going against Farmington tonight on the Parkland Podcast. And maybe you're listening and watching on Knuckleball Prime Time too. So we'll talk a little football and whatever else comes up with Jaxon. But Central, let's go back to last year, since I really haven't talked to you since the state championship. I mean, what a high that was. You were right in the middle of it as the middle linebacker, and you guys had a little lull in the middle of the season, and then you hit that next gear when you got some people healthy, took off, and one state going away broke records in the state championship game as well, and that's got to be your football highlight, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. But one of my most memorable games is probably the Blair Oaks game. That was a big game for us because we were doubted going into that game, and it was just one of those things, like, we knew we had to beat them to get there, and we never looked past any team we played, so just had to make sure we kept focused.
State semifinal, 48-43, great game. They've had a great program, certainly. So this year, I don't know if you'd say similar or not, but you guys have hit your lull. You've dropped a couple games now and trying to finish the season strong and head back into the postseason. You had a game against a district opponent. Last time out, Dexter, very good ball club. Valley before that. And now it's Farmington tonight in week number 9 to conclude the regular season. Where does Farmington fit in terms of rivalry games? Is it at the top?
Oh, I would say so. It's across town, and it's always a good game whenever you play them. It's always hyped up, and it's always fun to play those guys because you've either played sports with them or against them your entire life. So it's kind of interesting to see how this game's going to go because they're really, really good at what they do. And they've been kind of going through a lull, and so have we. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen whenever we match up tomorrow.
There were many years where Central and Farmington didn't play.
Yeah.
And now, this will be the 7th year in a row. So I think you probably remember it, your football playing days, playing against Farmington. Is it a case where, a lot of the guys know each other too? You're familiar with them?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, Case McLean's been playing since he was a freshman, and I would say Brett Dry, when did he come into the role last year? I didn't get to play against him last year.
Played as a sophomore but got injured. So, and then, last year too as a junior.
So, it's one of those things, like, you kind of know what you're kind of expecting, what you think is. And it's one of those things, like, you just got to get ready every week like it's your last, because it could be your last,
We've seen Central's offense really kind of morph throughout the years, depending upon what the personnel, what the talent is. And you guys spread it out last year. You're kind of more of a power team this year, a little bit, like Farmington is a power team. It's kind of an interesting story that, you've been the mainstay at middle linebacker on this team for years and years, but then surprise to you, you're the quarterback now. How did that come about?
Coach Rice kind of just looked at me and he was like, listen, dude, like, I understand that's what you want to do is play defense, but at the time, me and my father talked it over and we didn't want me to play defense because I've been banged up. And Coach Rice looked at me. He's like, I know you still want to play. You should play quarterback. I said, I don't know how I feel about that because I know I had to fill some big shoes with Case and Murphy leaving. So I just looked at him and I was like, I'll do it if that's what our team needs. I'll do whatever it takes.
And they lean on you hard. I remember that Fredericktown game. We had you for 33 carries. But, of course, that was a double overtime game, so there were a lot of carries to be had. But not only do you make a lot of tackles, you're out there for that. You do some special teams, but as quarterback, they rely on you to do a lot of different things. Your numbers are looking great this year, Jaxon. 144 through the air, 111 on the ground. Did you know what kind of quarterback you would even be when you took over? Like, you'd be this run-pass threat guy?
No, I definitely thought we were definitely going to go to, more of a run-heavy because, I can't throw it. I can throw it, but not as well as the dudes in the past, like Jet Bridges, Case and Murphy. Like, they've had some quarterbacks that
That's a high standard, though.
Yeah, and so I just kind of try to be my own person and create whatever I can out of my situation, not doing it. And I obviously make some errors, so it's kind of fun. There's growing pains with playing quarterback, so that's what's kind of fun. It's a challenge, which I enjoy.
What's your strength as a quarterback, do you think?
Running.
Just being that power guy, just give me the ball and
a thinker.
And lead it through you. I would say leadership too. Talk a little bit about your role as a leader. I mean, you've been a starter on this team, 3, maybe a little bit, 4 years, and so you've been through it all.
Yeah, I've had some great mentorship, I should say. My freshman year, Jet Bridges, all those guys, they really showed like what leaders are supposed to do. They're supposed to push each other. They're supposed to make each other better. And then my sophomore year, I kind of had like Tristan Stewart. He was like one of my best friends, and he kind of showed me like, hey, man, you got to be one of those guys. You got to be present. You can't shy away from conflict. You have to be able to put yourself out there, and if somebody does something wrong, you got to let them know. Yeah. So, and now last year, I really didn't have to do much leading because we had a lot of great leaders around. I mean, I just led the defense, and then on offense, I listened to whatever they told me to do, I did. Now this year, I've kind of had to adjust, and because everybody needs a different approach. Like you can't always get in people's faces and be upset. Sometimes you got to be like, hey, dude, do this. And because I'm one of those guys, you got to get it. You got to scream at me for me to understand what I did wrong.
Really?
Yeah. So it's interesting trying to figure out everybody, because it's a relationship you got to build for people to listen to you.
That's true. And you have to be the example too. Like you can't talk the talk without walking the walk too, right?
Sure.
Yeah. You have to go out there and do it. Not many people reference the coach of the Central Rebels, Corey Schweiss, without also mentioning your dad, PJ Jones. They're like almost co-head coaches sometimes, it seems like, and Coach Schweiss talks about him reverently that way. What's it like to play? And well, not only for your dad, but you've characterized Coach Schweiss as your second dad too.
Oh yeah, Coach Schweiss. I mean, I think the other night at senior night, it was like my dad's first year over here. I was born, so it's been 18 years. They've been together, and I've came through the system. Like I've been to practice when I was in 5th grade, watching all those guys, what they did, pushing sleds in the summer, lifting weights hard. So I definitely see Coach Schweiss as second dad, and it's like interesting because my dad is he's like me, he's very emotional. He lets it be known. So like he's not embarrassed, but Coach Schweiss is more of the calm like side of things, and it's interesting because me and my dad definitely butt heads. It's a lot of head butting, but we understand each other, so it's kind of fun. And then on the Coach Schweiss side of things, he looks at me and he'll grab me sometimes and be like, dude, listen, you got to calm down. Because I do get very upset sometimes. I am very emotional. But it's cool. It's definitely an experience.
Yeah. Well, I would rather have a guy that has some fire, though.
Yeah.
Than a guy that just walks through stuff. And I remember my favorite sport, my best sport growing up was baseball. And I always played for my dad. He was my coach. And I wouldn't change it. It was great. But if there was an example that needed to be made out of somebody, I was the guy.
Yeah.
He was always harder on me. He expected a lot. Yeah. Do you run into some of that?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I kind of enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge of him because he'll always make a comment of another guy doing something. He'll be like, "Oh, he's better than you." Like it's kind of just banter throughout the house. Yeah. My mom's kind of like, you need to calm down on him. Like he's 18. Like he's not. But it's definitely fun. I enjoy it because my dad's my best friend. I love my dad. So, but don't get me wrong. There's some times like after the Dexter game, me and him were mad at each other. Yeah. Because it's just
you want to win.
Yeah. We're just both so competitive, and it's just one of those things like you gotta be better. I was like, I know, but it was one of those things. I was so mad in the moment. I didn't want to admit it to him that I know I needed to do better. Yeah. But.
You're right in the middle of everything on both sides of the ball, offense or defense for you?
Defense.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be the answer. Tell me why.
I just like the physicality and also my dad did it, so me and him can kind of. There's been some growing pains with that too, because he's like, "What are you looking at here?" And our defense, we run a lot of good defensive things. Like we do a lot of different things, which kind of confuses people. But at the heart of everything, your defense just needs to be a strong, put-together group, and that's what I feel like our defense does. We stay together. One of our biggest things we say to each other is stay together. And my teammates, like I love all of them, but don't get me wrong, we're like brothers. We get into it sometimes, and I would say like Max Woods showing up for us at the other middle backer spot because early summer, he really wasn't like known. He didn't really make a name for himself, and then we kind of put him in there, and now I would say he's turned into a really good player for us, and he's a rock. He just plays intense, very intense kid, and he's willing to put it all out there.
Junior, so he's seeing him take the baton from you. You think? Yeah.
Yeah. Me and him talk a lot, and he's willing to learn. Like he'll ask me questions, he'll ask my dad questions, and like I don't know everything. And I always tell them, go ask my dad. My dad's been doing it a lot longer than me. So,
but too, we talk about the physical play, the leadership, the emotional side. But you're the coach's kid, and you have all the experience, so they rely on you for the cerebral part of it too. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's definitely been kind of tough for me. Like I had to learn, like I have to know more than I did last year. Because last year I only had to know what the defensive guys did. Now I have to know what both 11 on both sides of the ball are doing. Yeah. So it's like I look back. August Black's a freshman, and he's gonna be good.
He's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, he can run. And one of those things, like he's young, you forget that he's 14 years old because the way he does play. He plays hard. He's not scared of contact. So you got to kind of look at him sometimes and be like, dude, you're over here. But that's kind of fun for me because we've all been there, not knowing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So, like, you can't get mad at him. Like, he's never done it. So, but, yeah, I really enjoy, like, trying to lead. It's definitely, sometimes it's challenging. I should say that. It's very challenging sometimes because our next dude probably up is Caden Bourne, and our line up front, at the beginning of the year, they really didn't communicate well, but now they communicate. Caden Bourne's kind of taken over and been like, listen, dude, we're going to get this together. Like, we're going to talk. So, like, it's really cool seeing the growth throughout the year of our line play and how they're finally starting to communicate and understanding why we do things. So, and also the intensity's picked up a lot, which is cool.
So you go into week 9 at 5-3. You guys are still ranked in the state. You're ranked 9th this week in Class 3. You're kind of... Seems like you're kind of locked into that number 2 position in district with the loss to Dexter and then, the victory over some of your other district opponents. So it's not a conference game, but yet it's Farmington. So it still feels like a big one to me.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those games you got to go into ready to win. And, like, they're a really, really good ball club. And I would – what's the word I'm looking for? Fortes to their coach, I guess the word would be. Or, like, hats off to their coaches because they do a really good job with those guys up front. They turn – like, they know what they're doing. So it's going to be a good physical game, and they're legit. So it's going to definitely be it's going to be a dogfight going into it.
What grabs your attention when you watch them and scout them and prepare for them?
Well, it looks like the same Farmington I've watched for the last 4 years of high school, the same Reed, but it's one of those things, they got dudes doing it. Like Case McLean, he's a good player. He's going to run it down your face. And then Brett Dry and Josh McCarthy are definitely, they can run. Yeah. You got to take away the one-play home runs, or else they're going to gash you.
And you basically are talking about all 3 levels of the option right there.
Yeah.
McLean with the middle, QB, of course, with Brett as the keeper, and then McCarthy with the kind of the speed guy with the pitch man on the outside. So how best to defend that option attack?
You just got to do your job. Then that's what football is. Football is just a game of doing your job, especially on the defensive side. If one guy doesn't do their job, you're hanging somebody else out to dry. And that's where, like, staying together comes in. Like, you do your job. Like, you might not make the play. You might not get your name in the paper, but the dude behind you making the play. And you got to be like, hey, good stuff. Like, we congratulate our up front. Like, our up front doesn't make any plays, like, a lot. Like, they get to have fun on 3rd and long, and it's really cool to watch.
If you're making plays, that means they're doing their job, right?
Yeah. And I always tell the guys in the back end, you better thank your lineman because you just got that pick. You better thank your lineman because they're the reason you just made that tackle. Up front's going to win us the game tomorrow. If that's what it's going to come down to, is who's willing to do their job. Because up front, Farmington's good too. They do their job. They do their assignment. So it's going to be a fun game. Then they pick apart little things you don't do right. That's what's cool about their offense. They know what they're going to do, and they're going to never stray from it. They're going to do it until you show a little crack in your armor, and then they're just going to attack that one spot.
Now, on the other side, I don't want you to give away anything, and I know you won't. But you guys really have kind of been at your best when you play a power football game this year. But yet, Corey Schweiss always has some extra stuff in the playbook, especially for games like this. So we might see a thing or two, maybe?
Not really. We're gonna stick with what we do best, and that right now that is running the football, and which is kind of sucky because you got Karis Foster, you got Barrett Henson, you got all those guys on the outside that can run, and they're legit too. They can play, and I feel like a lot of our guys get overlooked in that sense because we can't throw the ball that well this year, and I will take some of the blame for that. But it's one of those things you got to change with the time. You ain't got 4 guys outside that can run, do all of it. So
you complete over half though, 53%.
Yeah.
And I think it looks to me in watching you guys this year, you're learning, who you can trust as a wide receiver, what routes are maybe the best. We saw in midseason, you went to Cole and Halsey a lot, and yet that August Black or Toomey or Henson or, if you get the ball to those guys in space, they can make some things happen.
It's one of those things, like, you got to know what your guys can and can't do. Yeah. And I really like my guys in space. So that's why we do a lot of quick throws. Like, I'm trying to get Karras and Barrett in space because they can run and they're going to make you miss and then they're going to go make a play, which is kind of fun to watch. We had a talk in practice today. I looked over at Coach Calvert. We did some handoff and it's a read, and I was like, I'm going to give it to Karras. He's like, why? I said, he can run better than me. That's a fact. I like watching him in space. He can dance, so it's cool to watch him. It's going to be cool to watch him over the next few years grow as a player and as a person. Yeah. So,
what's in the future for you? More football, you think?
I don't really, yeah.
Think
yes,
so?
Sir. More football. That's the plan as of right now.
We'll be eager to see. So, congratulations on all your success. Thanks for joining us in the barn tonight.
Sir, thank you.
Jaxon Jones joining us on the Parkland Podcast pregame show and right here on Knuckleball Prime Time as well. Farmington and Central. It's the St. Francis County rivalry on Parkland Sports Live.